The following content is provided under a Creative Commons license. Your support will help MIT OpenCourseware continue to offer high-quality educational resources for free. To make a donation or to view additional materials from hundreds of MIT courses, visit MIT OpenCourseware at ocw.mit.edu.
Basically, you're not going to be able to use this Beatles clip, unfortunately. But
Okay.
Can I hear what the song is?
Yes.
So the reason why this is under Creative Commons, which it's a little sketchy, I'm not sure if they legitimately could have done that, but it's because they've transformed it so much to the extent that it's like no longer the original work, right? So if you revert it to the original work, then you're also you're like taking away the Creative Commons work, basically.
This is me.
And you like this instrumental?
Mhm.
You could find something like this on CC Mixer or
Okay.
Free Music Archive. It'll take a while, and unfortunately I don't have a shortcut. That's the problem with music, is that it's not cataloged very well, so it's time consuming because you just have to listen to everything.
What would be like a good mood to search for that, or how would you
I
characterize it?
wouldn't necessarily search by mood, I would search by instrumentation.
Okay.
So have you looked at any of those links that were up on the syllabus? I mean, this is sort of like chill rock, basically.
Okay.
And that may not actually narrow it down. Go ahead and try to explore other genres too. Unfortunately, there's no like quick algorithm for finding good music. That's why it's so time consuming. But let me see what you've got cut so far.
Okay. The video?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Do you mind if I bump up your brightness a little bit so
Oh,
I
yeah.
can see it better?
And I'll delete this song for now.
Hi, what do snowflakes and cell phones have in common? Well, let me start by drawing a snowflake first. First, I draw an equilateral triangle. Divide each side into 3 parts and draw another equilateral triangle on top of each one. Then take out the middle and repeat the process, this time with 1, 2, 3, 4 times 3, which is 12 sides. Eventually, the shape will start looking something like this. In mathematics, this is called a Koch snowflake. If I repeated my process again and again, I would see this same pattern anywhere I looked. This is a Koch snowflake. This time
And this
drawn
would be
on
an
a
animation. I
computer.
just kind of
Such never-ending
this.
patterns that on any scale, on any level of zoom, look roughly the same are called fractals. Computer scientists can program these infinite patterns by repeating an often simple mathematical process over and over. In the 1990s, a radio astronomer named Nathan Cohen used fractals to revolutionize telecommunications. At the time, Cohen was having troubles with his landlord. The man wouldn't let him put an antenna on his roof. So, Cohen designed a more compact fractal radio antenna instead. The landlord didn't notice it, and it worked better than the ones before. Working further, Cohen designed a new antenna, this time using a fractal called the Menger sponge. The Menger sponge is not really the sponge you'd be scrubbing your back with, but you can still think of it like that. Imagine both water and soap getting through your sponge's holes, except the water is Wi-Fi and the soap is, say, Bluetooth. The fractal's infinite sponginess allows it to receive many different frequencies simultaneously. Before Cohen's invention, antennas had to be cut for one frequency, and that was the only frequency they could operate at. So, without Cohen's sponge, your cell phone would have to look something like a hedgehog to receive multiple signals, including the one your friends use when they call. Cohen later proved that only fractal shapes could work with such a wide range of frequencies. Today, millions of wireless communication devices,
sorry about that.
laptops and barcodes.
Oh,
That was
is that the music?
that was.
Okay.
I was testing something.
Okay, I was like, what was happening
Yeah,
when you guys
that's-
were recording?
Yeah. I'm gonna delete that.
Devices,
Come on.
You can. Here, let's go.
I was like earlier somewhere up there. This.
Choe's genius invention, however, was not the first application of fractals in the world.
Ah, why is
If
it
you-
doing that?
Yeah,
Oh,
you
there
can
we
just
go.
do this, and it's around here. Yes, it's.
Including laptops and barcode scanners, use Cohen's fractal antenna. Cohen's genius invention, however, was not the first application of fractals in the world. Turns out, nature has been doing it the whole time, and not just with snowflakes. Natural selection favors the most efficient systems and organisms, often of a fractal shape. For example, the spiral fractal is present in broccoli, seashells, and hurricanes. The fractal tree is relatively easy to program and can be used to study river systems, blood vessels, and lightning bolts. So many natural systems previously thought off limits to mathematicians can now be explained in terms of fractals. Thus, mathematics allows us to learn nature's best practices and then apply them to solve real-world problems. Much like Cohen's antenna revolutionized the field of telecommunications, other fractal research is changing medicine, weather prediction, and building design. Here at MIT and everywhere in the world. Look around you. What beautiful patterns do you see?
All right, that's a good start. Good start. So I think in general the transitions could be a little bit tighter. So like right here,
First,
when you walk off, well, this hiccup is like really noticeable. So either hide it by having an extreme close-up before you leave, or just get rid of this entirely. Although I know that you did that to show the walk-off so
Yeah.
that you could show walking in.
And I can connect. This is actually one video. I separated so I could speed this up.
Oh, okay.
So this, and I guess
I
I was just
almost-
playing around with that.
I almost think this happens too quickly, though.
Yeah, it's at 140 right now.
Yeah,
so
I would slow,
just
it, slow back down. Yeah. So let's go scene by scene. Is this track Creative Commons?
No, it's Aerosmith. I would
Okay.
take that out.
There-
I
you
was
could
just looking for an
probably
intro.
There's probably an iMovie sound effect actually that you could use.
Okay.
For this part where you're just like walking around, I would digitally zoom and close up, because otherwise you jump to talking all of a sudden, but your movement wasn't exaggerated enough to where you like get the joke that you're talking. So you can exaggerate it by changing the actual framing of the scene.
So would I zoom in when I start talking?
I would stay zoomed in when you're talking and then clean cut to a wider shot of you afterwards. So basically I would cut like right there.
Okay.
I don't remember how my version's a little bit different than yours. But I would cut right there, and for the preceding clip, I would. Do you know how to crop and zoom on clips?
Yeah, I can.
You just go like
kinda.
that, basically. Yeah, for that. Now, for this, I would also.
First,
This is basically one really long shot that is framed the exact same way, and it's very lecture-y because you're literally at a blackboard. Although I think that was a good setup for you guys, given the complexity of explaining this. But I think you can avoid making it sound too chalkboard lecture-y by cutting in and out of your frame,
Okay.
or of your framing. So this is fine.
first, I draw an equilateral.
Like right there, I would save your audio, but just cut to a close-up of your hand drawing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
A triangle.
So kind of like with the phone when I'm showing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would do more of that. I think in general, you have very static shots that last for a long time. So you can break that up by keeping the same track from your one long take, but mixing up the extent to which you've zoomed in.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I did with the phone, so I can definitely work on that.
I think that would help with, because this section's pretty long. Like if you just even look at your project, this file is 32 seconds.
Which it's the video is about 3 minutes and 40 seconds right now. I
Okay.
think.
Wait.
And then like this part is because I inserted the song. At the
Oh,
end too.
okay, great.
Repeated my process again and again, I would see this same.
So I guess you could zoom in at
Yeah.
this
If I
same shape.
repeated
I wouldn't, I feel like you're revealing this image too soon in your sentence. If I repeated this process over and over again, I would see this image, and I almost don't want to see that image until you say this image.
Okay.
Right? So maybe if you can zoom in and frame and crop out the fractal zoom in until you say this, and then at this you can either pan to the drawing or you can cut to a wide shot.
Okay.
If I repeated my process again and again, I would see this same pattern anywhere I looked.
And anywhere you looked, I mean, is there a way to like shoot footage of just close-ups of the snowflake, of you like going around the edge of the periphery of the snowflake?
So that would be this.
That would be
part.
that part. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a cock snowflake.
Which this is a software, a fractal drawing software. I'm allowed to like film the zoom in on that and then use.
It depends on what license the software is released under and who created that image.
Okay. So I mean, I didn't have to pay for it or anything.
Oh, you created the image.
No, well, so kind of. It's just a software, and then you can do. Let's say you draw a cock snowflake, and then you can just zoom in on it.
Oh.
And then I just
And
colored
that's a
it
free
differently.
open source software?
Yeah, it was free.
You know what you should do is you should just take a QuickTime recording of your screen, like what we
Yeah,
were doing,
that's what I was
and just
thinking.
like do a QuickTime recording of you zooming in.
And that's okay to use.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, whoa, this is so trippy. How do I make it stop?
I don't actually know. Like, I
Okay.
haven't worked too much. There's
But
actually
yeah,
a video of somebody doing that, which is well done. So I may use part of that.
Ideally you would make your own video.
Yeah, I'll work on it. Maybe I'll just like track their movements at least.
Yeah, because I don't know what the details of that would be if you're actually allowed to use that video, unless
Okay.
they've specifically released it under Creative Commons. All right, so here.
This is a cock snowflake, this time drawn on a computer. Such never-ending patterns that
So
on
this would
any
be
scale, on any
zoom.
level of zoom, look roughly the same, are called fractals.
Okay, this is where you change your wardrobe all of a sudden. Ideally that wouldn't happen. Wardrobe changes are okay if it makes sense, but here it seems like a little arbitrary. But it's not the end of the world. Does that make sense why that seems a little bit weird though? Because it's like in your script there's nothing that sort of signifies or identifies that you've shot like at a different day or that you're in a location that requires a different wardrobe, you know?
This is a cock snowflake, this time drawn on a computer. Such never-ending patterns that on any scale, on any level of zoom, look roughly the same, are called fractals.
Okay, I'm just gonna say it. How do you pronounce Coke Snowflake?
I think it's Coke, but I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's Koch, right? just because I would imagine that it's educators watching this video, but if there are little children watching this one, there are going to be some, he said cock snowflake comments.
Okay. I was actually thinking of doing, because the sound changes so much, I was actually thinking of doing a voiceover of this, because what I found, I recorded this part indoors and outdoors, and I could match up the sound perfectly.
Okay.
For what I was moving. So if I like do the same thing but somewhere else, I can probably match up the sound and change the snowflake part.
Helga von Koch. Yeah, I would just look up the pronunciation of that just to
Alright, I will do that.
just to be careful. Yeah, and especially like this is just VO stuff anyway, so you can easily re-record that. So wait for the reveal here. Basically, do a little more with cutting in and out of close-ups and wide shots. Oh, okay, right
Are
here.
called fractals.
So this reveal is a little awkward because you're not looking at the audience when you're saying the big reveal, and then you have this sort of unnatural pause before you start the next sentence.
I was actually originally intending to say fractals here, but I cut it
okay.
and
I see.
thought,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'll just say that. But originally it was going to be, I finished saying
Got
fractals,
it.
and then I type on the computer and say,
Okay,
this
that'll
is how we
work a lot
program
better.
that. So
I mean,
I can just redo that.
okay, cool. I mean, I think it's also, if you, I think ideally you would say fractals, and then you'd look down at your computer. But what you're saying now, that'll work too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how we filmed it. So
Yeah, because this like gap in where you take a breath, it sounds fine, but it looks a little awkward.
Computer scientists can program these infinite patterns by
So this is super overexposed in the background. So I would try to see if you can bring the exposure down just a little bit.
okay.
I don't remember how to do that on iMovie.
It's on this. I actually increased the exposure because there were
Oh.
some shadows, but I can play around with that.
Yeah, I mean the main thing is the whites, right? Like you're super blown out in the in the window.
infinite patterns by repeating an often
No, it was different in the original.
Okay.
And
I don't know if you can, if there's a histogram on iMovie, but if you can somehow just like increase the blacks, but don't blow out the whites, that might help if you have weird shadows going on.
I think so. It looked like this originally, I think.
Oh yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I don't know. I was playing around with that, but that's not the final version.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but that was the original. what
Got
it
it.
looked like.
communications.
Oh yeah, I remember this one also feels pretty long to me.
Computer scientists can program these infinite patterns by repeating an often simple mathematical process over and over.
So for that line, do you have footage of you on MATLAB graphing a fractal?
I can do that.
Because
It would probably be on the fractal software. and we
yeah,
can just-
yeah,
we can
even
do
that, like just to break it up a little bit and give them like a visual association. Because this is one of those times where if you're like, again, in a static place saying the same, like a big chunk of words to them, it's sort of easier to tune it out a little bit.
Okay.
Fractals. Computer scientists can program these infinite patterns by repeating an often simple mathematical process over and over. In the 1990s,
Yeah, and then cut back out to you when you say,
Okay.
because that's like a very separate thought.
a radio astronomer named Nathan Choe
Is there a picture of Nathan Cohen that could like pop up on the side? Or
I
something?
can probably find that, yeah.
used
There is one, actually.
fractals to revolutionize telecommunications.
Oh, okay. So halfway through the video, you switch to these like cube turn transitions. I mean, this is personal preference. I don't know how you feel about transitions. But I feel like either keep it all the same or use like the little quirkier transitions for, you know, a very pointed reason.
Okay.
But,
For this one, because it was such different locations, I used these to tell the story. So this is me introducing the story and telling the story. So just for that story, I'm using those transitions.
yeah, I think if you're gonna do that, I much prefer a push rather than a cube turn.
Okay.
Because we've done that once before, and again, personal preference, George had to really sell me on the idea because I was very opposed to it. But instead of doing a rotation, it's a wipe, basically. One frame pushes off and reveals the next one.
Okay.
I think that looks a little bit better.
Basically, I prefer as subtle of transition as possible, and the animations are cool, but they remind people of like really flashy homemade videos as opposed
like
to
this is a very iMovie transition.
Yeah.
At the time, Cohen was having troubles with his landlord. The man wouldn't let him put an antenna on his roof. So,
There's some. Wait, let me listen to this again.
time, Cohen was having troubles with his landlord. The man wouldn't let him put an antenna on his roof. So, Cohen designed a more compact,
There, I would zoom in, cut to a closer framing of that.
fractal radio
That's like just the wire.
antenna instead. The landlord didn't notice it, and it worked better than the ones before. Working further,
And then,
And then cut back out, yeah.
Cohen designed a new antenna, this time using a fractal called the Menger sponge.
And again, I don't think it's necessary to do a rotation.
The Menger
And I was thinking here, while the maybe have the Menger sponge increase in size and then have curtain as a background. So would that be another transition
sponge.
to kind of have the Menger sponge expand and then have me wipe it off?
Are you drawing an Avenger sponge?
Going to have a model of it, hopefully.
Menger sponge.
So you're gonna, sorry, are you gonna refilm the part with like a model or like?
No, just like a image model.
Oh, okay.
So it would pop up in your hand right there. So the way this is framed, I mean, the subject is really here. It's going to be here, and you're so biased. I mean, this is beautifully framed in terms of like rule of thirds and everything, but because you held your hand out this way, it's going to look really fun. Like the visual balance of that frame is going to look really funny when you're like Menger sponge, and then all of a sudden this like huge thing gets cut off on the side. So either zoom in a little bit. I mean, ideally you would have held out this hand so that it would have been in the middle, although the background's really distracting, so I don't know if...
Menger sponge. The Menger sponge.
And are you going to hold... Oh, so I'm assuming the Menger sponge picture will be floating somewhere?
It would be here, yeah. But then I would get rid of it when I'm talking about the regular sponge.
Well, here it would still be floating, because I think when you're saying the Menger sponge isn't exactly like a real sponge, right? But I think the Menger sponge needs to be shown.
Okay.
If you're going to show something, show it long enough to where the viewer can process it a little bit. Otherwise, it's like this blip that might distract them.
Sponge.
Okay.
Menger sponge.
Did you cut right here, or is there a little bit more?
I think there's a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, hold it just a little bit, and maybe cut to, cut to a close-up shot. That can be sort of a workaround to the weird framing issue. Otherwise, it's really nicely done.
The Menger sponge
Yeah, you can say the Menger sponge and it pop up right there.
is not really the sponge you'd be scrubbing your back with. But you can still think of it like that. Imagine both water and soap getting through your sponge's holes, except the water is Wi-Fi and the soap is, say, Bluetooth.
Yeah, so here the timing of you turning on the water is a little bit weird because you turn it on like way after you say water and soap. And I wonder were you planning on doing an animation for this section?
Think of it like that. Imagine both water and soap getting through your sponge's holes.
Because I feel like this is a spot where it actually would be beneficial to not even have an overlay, but a completely separate animation of like a sponge with holes and like H2O and soap with arrows pointing, like going into the sponge holes. What do you think, Ceri?
Yeah, or just to like demonstrate that concept, because it's easier to understand when you read it than when you hear it in a couple seconds.
Yeah. And I think like this visuals of this, again, it's a pretty long, It's 14 seconds. It's actually kind of long to have the same sort of still framing.
If you like how it's framed, you could also just overlay
Yeah.
a little arrow pointing in. Because you hold it pretty still.
But you can still think of it like that. Imagine both water and soap.
Yeah, like you could just have, H2O and soap with arrows pointing into the sponge and like coming out of the sponge.
Getting through your sponge's hole. Except the water is Wi-Fi and the soap is, say, Bluetooth.
Yeah, but I almost would. You can leave it in for the rough cut, and we can see what other people say.
Mm-hmm.
But the movement of that is almost distracting because it has nothing to do with what you're saying when you're saying it, right? Do you have another take of this?
All of them are kind of like this.
Oh, the exact same. Okay.
Yeah. There might be one when I finish talking and then turn on the water, so I could use that.
Yeah.
Say, Bluetooth.
Because if you cut it right here, and you didn't turn on the water, then that would have been better.
I think there are versions like that I can use.
And again, this one, like, I wouldn't do a push at all. I really think, it looks a lot better when you do as clean transitions as you can.
The fractal's infinite sponginess allows it the
I would shave off maybe like a half second.
the
Because you take a breath, and then it takes like just a hair before you actually start talking.
Okay.
So just snip just like the tiniest bit off of that
the
beginning.
fractal's infinite sponginess
Are you planning on doing any animations to the side?
allows it to receive
I probably
many
can put
different
a Minder
frequencies
sponge there.
simultaneously.
And like signals coming
Yeah,
inside.
yeah. Because otherwise, again, like nice rule of thirds, but you have a bath. Is that like a bathroom stall?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a really awkward visual.
Yeah.
But if
It's a good background.
it's a good background if you wanted to put a picture of a Mender sponge receiving like different signals.
All right, I can
Yeah.
see
For
that.
Cohen's invention, antennas had to be cut for one frequency,
Yeah. So like show an old antenna.
and that was the only frequency they could operate at. So,
Yeah, and like right here.
So, without Cohen's sponge, your cell phone would have to look something like a hedgehog.
I would. So there's like a bit of a hesitation before you say without cone sponge, and I don't even think you need the so. So I would just cut out the pause and the so and cut straight to without cone sponge.
Okay.
And then to hide that cut, you can either zoom in a little bit more.
Right back. So,
Okay. That makes
without
sense.
Cohen's sponge, your cell phone would have to.
Yeah, and like for that, since you're not gonna have the animation, I would frame it and zoom in to where it's just you.
Okay.
And the resolution's gonna look a little funky, but I think it's worth a compromise to do that.
And it helps lead into, because like start leading the viewer into seeing your phone, because it's like you're starting out with a wide shot and then now you're on you, and then eventually it'll be your phone, and so it's like just helps the narrative along.
Yeah.
Like that.
Look something like a hedgehog to receive
And again, I wouldn't ripple, I would just go straight and cut into that.
multiple signals, including the one your friends use when they call.
Okay. So I'll take out that transition.
Yeah. This one you could, because it's such a different, wait, is that the end?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, the end of the story.
Yeah.
Use when they call.
Maybe you could do a push.
Cohen later proved that only fractal
But it's still part of the same story, so I would say just do a clean cut there too.
Okay.
I like that background.
But it's still a little overexposed here
Yeah,
too.
that
So
was
just bring it
another
down
one I
just a
edited, so
touch.
I'll
Yeah.
put it back.
Yeah, so clean transition. I would cut out this gap too. It's just like the slightest.
Okay.
It's too long by just like the slightest amount of time.
Cohen later proved that only fractal shapes could work.
And that's actually what makes it read sort of newscastery. You know, like have you ever seen the special segments, and the reporters like on their couch and they're like da 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 da, and then this person did this. So it's just like those tiny little gaps that make it read that way, but if you get rid of it, then it'll be a lot more natural.
Work with such a wide range of frequencies. Today, millions of wireless communication devices, including laptops and barcode scanners, use Cohen's fractal antenna. Cohen's genius invention, however, was not the first application of fractals in the world.
So I'm gonna change that audio as well because I think that was too grand, and I have other versions that may work better.
Okay. I like this camera slow pan off, actually.
We did another version which had also this pan. It wasn't as good, but I said the next sentence after that, so it sounds more natural. So I'm going to see if I can trade off the visual for better.
Do you need some? Oh, sorry. Okay. So this is why this transition is a little bit funny here. The speed at which you're moving the camera when you pan off is way faster than when you pan down onto you.
Okay.
So what you could do is cut this clip into two and speed up the first part like you did earlier. Also, is this broccoli?
It is broccoli. There's a mural in Stata.
I didn't know that was broccoli. It looked like bags of seeds or something.
It looked like broccoli enough.
Like looks like cauliflower.
Turns out, nature has...
It actually made me cauliflower. I think I confused the words when I was filming it. So, yeah.
Oh, I hate you. Okay.
So if you just press here, that would, yeah.
I mean, it's indistinguishable, and it looks like bags of stuff almost.
I can still
Fractal shapes could work with
insert
such a
just an
wide
image
range
of
of
broccoli, so I don't.
Today, millions of wireless
it's not
communication devices, including laptops and barcode scanners, use Cohen's fractal antenna. Cohen's genius invention, however, was not the first application of fractals in the world.
Yeah, the pan just needs to happen sooner.
Okay.
If I would even like speed the pan off, and then speed up the pan down.
Got it.
Right, because
Okay.
it's like you're waiting for the camera to get to move off of you.
Cohen's genius invention, however, was not the first application of fractals in the world.
Are you planning on reshooting any of this for sure?
Turns out, nature has been doing it the whole time.
Some scenes, like I
And
can
not just with
reshoot this one
snowflakes.
and the one in the
Natural
classroom.
selection favors the most
The
efficient
ones
systems
in East
and
Campus, I don't think that.
Yeah, I
could
think
do
that's
that.
fine, yeah.
organisms, often of a fractal shape. For example, the spiral fractal is present in broccoli, seashells, and hurricanes.
Yeah, because I think, especially with this one, I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I know. Okay, so the broccoli that I think the spiral fractals are most present in, it's like Romanesco broccoli or something like that. And so like
It's a specific type.
it's a specific type, and so people might be confused and like look at their normal broccoli and like
I would show a picture of the Romanesco broccoli,
Yeah.
especially because I don't think this is I think this is bags of barley or cotton almost.
That would make more sense. It's also why the person is up there.
Yeah. And I think also it just like doesn't really, oh my gosh, it doesn't look like a fractal.
Okay.
Whereas the broccoli actually, there are visualizations of it where it actually looks like, oh, I can identify this as a fractal.
Okay.
And so it'll be reassuring for your viewer when they can see the picture of the broccoli and be like, oh, I can totally see how that's a fractal, rather than be like squinting at your background and be like, is that, like, did I learn anything from this video? Type thing.
If you're gonna reshoot this part, and like if you can't get it this weekend, that's okay. Remember, you still have Wednesday to do it. I would be careful about the way you're emphasizing words. It's kind of falling a little into the trap of what George was saying about how news presenters emphasize every third word just to sound sort of, they're emphasizing important thoughts, but they don't really make sense where they're emphasizing the words, right? So I would just try a few different types of deliveries. One where you're actually emphasizing every other word on purpose, and then, do something like completely exaggerated, and then try one where you're sort of more natural tone talking.
In the world.
I think that's how I usually
Turns
present,
out,
like
nature
even
has
in
been
real
doing
life.
it the whole time. And not just with snow. Of fractals in the world.
Remember that 8th grade PhD thing. You're talking for 8th graders, but you're not talking necessarily to a 10-year-old, right? So how would you say this line?
Turns out, nature has been doing it the whole time.
How would you say that line to like your professor?
I mean, I wouldn't say this line to my professor.
How would you say that line to Jamie?
Turns out, nature has been doing it the whole time.
Yeah, that's a little bit different. Like, turns out nature's been doing it the whole time. Or, I mean, it's such a subtle nuance, but it's just something about like...
Laptops and barcode scanners use Cohen's fractal antenna. Cohen's genius invention, however, was not the first application of fractals in the world. Turns out, nature has been doing it the whole time.
I think it's the way you say time. Nature has been doing it the whole time.
Okay.
I mean, it's okay to say it the whole time, but it reads like a little reading rainbow when the intonation is like that. But again, maybe that's just my personal taste. In general, I think your enthusiasm is really, really good. Like, you're taking a subject that's inherently a little bit hard to visualize, it's a little bit tedious, and because you have this enthusiastic delivery, it's a lot easier to follow along with you, which is good. So don't lose any of that energy, for sure.
And not just with snowflakes. Natural selection favors the most efficient systems and organisms, often of a fractal shape. For example, the spiral fractal is present in broccoli, seashells, and hurricanes.
If you reshoot this, just make sure that you're framed more in the center and there's enough room above you to accommodate for the animations. And this is actually something that you could probably, if you had to, you could do on your own. You just set up the tripod and flip the screen around you so you could see. You wouldn't have the pan down, but that's okay.
The fractal tree is relatively easy to program and can be used to study river systems, blood vessels, and lightning bolts. So many.
Yeah, I definitely don't think there was enough space there, but
Yeah.
I wasn't the one directing.
The
I
other
was
thing,
able to.
the other thing is, like, if you end up filming this part on your own, you don't necessarily have to have a pan down. You could just do a push down transition. That's where, like, I feel like a transition would be okay because you've got the camera tilt up previously. If you do this again, when you look, I would just look up instead of going like this because it's like a little bit awkward to go like that.
Okay.
Natural systems previously thought off limits to mathematicians can now be explained in terms of fractals.
I wouldn't move off of this scene so quickly. Like, give it one more beat before you transition.
And can be used to study river systems, blood vessels, and lightning bolts. So many natural systems previously thought off limits. Tree is relatively easy to program and can be used to study river systems, blood vessels, and lightning bolts.
And I would reshoot this completely, so I don't
many
even need to
natural
worry about
systems
this.
previously thought off limits to mathematicians can now be explained in terms of fractals.
Yeah, and right here, I would just cut to immediately you talking because there's like a little bit too long of a pause before you start. And bump up the
Yeah, I'll do a
levels.
voiceover for this one because there's a lot of wind.
Allows us to learn nature's best practices and then apply them to solve real-world problems. Much like Cohen's antenna revolutionized the field of telecommunications, other fractal research is changing medicine, weather prediction, and building design. Here at MIT and everywhere in the world. Look around you.
When you say look around you, I would actually cut back to a close-up of you. Look
Okay.
around you.
What beautiful patterns do you see?
Okay.
And just end it a little bit sooner. Yeah, it's a good start. Really good start.
A good rule of thumb, we never mentioned this in the editing lecture, but like you want to give the end of a scene a little room to breathe so people can process like what's going on. And then at the beginning of a scene, you want it to be like 1 or 2 frames before you start talking, so it's like almost immediately your voice.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I should have brought that up during the editing lecture, but I feel like the tendency is to do the opposite with what you've done with the scenes here, where you end too soon and then you wait too long before you start the next scene.
It's like, it's counterintuitive, but it makes it flow better.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you're in really good shape in terms of like pacing what you need to do before next week. So I think at this point it's a matter of getting the animations in and the music. But yeah.
Fine. Thank you.
You're definitely like well on your way on the right track, like to be done.
This chair is news bears. I like lean back to stretch. It's like I'm still leaning.
This entire room is kind of
It's a little haphazard. It's a little thing.
I'm cutting it and pasting.
How are you guys doing?
Thank you.
I'm still cutting and pasting them together. And choosing which ones are okay.
You're still cutting and pasting the script?
No.
Oh, your scenes together.
Yeah.
You guys finished filming everything, right?
Yeah.
This is nice framing.
Thank you.
Good job.
See, you should. No. So.
Now, if you did it again, one cool thing that you could do, and I'm not saying that you need to because this is fine, but if you had moved him to the center of that picture and you moved close enough, then this image could basically fill the entire background and you wouldn't have this weird gap, right?
Oh, okay.
I don't know if the image was big enough to do that compared to the size of his
The image was
body.
big enough. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want him to look like he was in green screen.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
That is a good
That's
point.
the reason why. I have a bit of OCD, so I can't stand the words on the right, actually. But I'm fine.
It's okay. It's okay.
yeah, it's blurry enough that it's not distracting because I'm not trying to read the words because I don't think they're like readable.
Yeah. I wish I could have given you guys lights, because that's what happens when you rely on the fluorescent to get some weird shadows on your face from overhead.
Yeah.
But it looks nice. Do you guys have any specific questions right now, or should we just let you work?
I'm planning to do animation on like some on
I didn't see you guys film anything. Oh, I guess I saw you guys film that stuff.
like I plan to put animation here, but
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely
That's good.
is that okay?
That's a good service.
Yeah. As long as you keep the pictures small enough.
And you can adjust the size like even after you've done it in After Effects and you've like exported it or transferred over to Premiere, you can change the size of it.
How much faster would that be?
Did you guys use the
Well, that
Vixia for
depends
that one?
on the number of students in the school.
Did you use the Vixia in
Let's
the
say there
hotel?
are 500 students
the
and we're
Vixia?
looking for one.
The Canon
It'll take
camera?
about 80 minutes
That's
in the
like
first
nicely
minute,
lit.
but 1.5
Surprisingly
minutes
nicely
for
lit.
research.
You
But let's say there are
Yeah.
1,000 students in the
So
school.
it's like a lot of
It'll
natural
take
light then.
160 minutes with the first.
How does it look?
Yeah, it looks really nice.
I think the white bed sheets help because they're like a
Yeah.
natural reflector.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
like-
you're right.
Curtains really white, so they're all natural light. Yeah, for this one. And there was a lot of stuff here, then I threw it away. I was like, can't stand it, it's too much.
The only thing is, you might want to bring the exposure down just a tiny bit, because the whites here are really peaking pretty high, but everything from here is so nicely lit that I'm almost inclined to just like, forget it. Just keep it the way it is.
How do you tweak the exposure on the...
In the editing software, there should be a way to just like bring down the exposure.
I mean,
What do
Premiere
you-
Pro?
What are you using for yours?
I think the simplest way would be to tap the bright area and then it will dim. Like,
I mean on the when you're taking the video camera
Like-
itself.
like on the video itself, in the touch screen, you just tap
Mm.
your shirt, then it will have dimmed down.
Nice job, guys.
You just kind of disappeared for a couple days, but you came back with
Yeah.
really good footage.
I'll let you guys can just work. We'll stay out of the way. If you, guys want to
If you have any questions, then
and just go for it. But
yeah. And I'll be able to answer like any editing questions you have in Premiere.
this
So, like,
one I
if
would
it's-
zoom in on you a little bit more because you're a little low.
Oh.
So I would crop in like that
Yeah.
to where
Oh.
the top of the frame is just above your head.
Usually do the rule of thirds with like eyes rather than the top of head
Mm-hmm.
type thing. And so if you look at your eyes, they're kind of in the middle. And so you want to adjust it so you're a little, yeah, like that. Closer. Yeah.
We'll let you guys work. That's all. Let me eat for today, actually.
What time is it?
It's 10 till 3.
Okay.
Okay. So now what the problem is Illustrator defaults to a brush, which we don't want because that will mess up when we redraw it in After Effects. So we select the arrow. We want to change brush definition to basic.
Okay.
Go into stroke. Let's see. Why are there not more options? There you go. Change the caps and corners to round, so it's like nice and smooth, like it looks like a brush. Basically, we're making it look like a brush while doing a basic stroke, and then change it to like whatever weight you want. So you want it about that, and you can play around. Like, do you want it super thick or do you want it not so thick? And then the last thing you need to do before going into After Effects is go into this layer, and so see it has like the different parts of the arrow. You want to highlight everything, click this drop-down menu, and click Reverse Order, because it stacks it from the last thing you drew to the first thing you drew, and you want it to be first thing you drew to last thing you drew.
Okay.
Then you want to save this. Okay, we'll just save it in Documents for now. Okay, and then you open up After Effects. If it will open. There you go.
That's a nice pan, Joshua. That's nice camera work.
Sorry, what? Oh, I held the tripod. I
You
took
held
your
it?
advice.
That's good.
I look
It-
really stupid though.
But it's really steady. So,
I didn't actually hold it like that. I knew that it'll be bad.
okay. Well, if After Effects will open and not give us the color wheel of death, then I can show you.
Oh,
What? Oh.
I can also just email it to you afterwards.
Oh, I can get it. I have my computer right.
Yeah.
It's like open. It's about half an hour of video, I think. I don't know. Okay, After Effects. Hooray. Okay, so we're going to import our composition as a composition. Mm-hmm. Okay, double click it. I'm going to set it to a white background just so we can see things. And depending on if you do it on the black portion, you might want to set the background to black and have the arrow be in white, like depending on how you want it to look. Okay, so this is the fun part. So we're going to turn the arrow layer into shapes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a trim paths. And basically what that means is it's going to draw the line for you. And then under trim paths, we're going to trim multiple shapes individually, because that means, so if you do it simultaneously, it'll draw the arrow, like both lines at the same time. So it'll start drawing the long arrow and like the arrowhead at the same time. And we don't want that. to change it to individually. And then wherever you want it to start, you turn the end down to 0. Set your keyframe. And say we want it to draw in 2 seconds. You turn the end to 100. And you go back to the beginning and you press space. And then I'll draw the arrow.
Oh.
In like as much time.
Oh, okay.
Is that like what you wanted to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to do arrows.
Yeah. And then you can change it like different, like there's some lines, like I like writing out handwriting a lot in animations in my videos. And so like, for example, if you want it to pause on this door, you can set it, okay, so it's like a 35%. So you can set a keyframe there at 35%, and then you can like set another one later on, also at 35%. And then what it does is it like pauses at the door, holds it there, and then keeps going in the remaining time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you can remember all that, but if you forget steps of
Roughly.
it, I can like write me and I'll redo it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Let me know if there's anything else you need to know.
Thank you.